For the nearly 1.5 to 2 crore cryptocurrency investors in India, the last 48 hours has been one filled with uncertainty. Will the new cryptocurrency bill or the crypto assets bill, which has to be presented in the winter session of Parliament, pretty much ban trading in cryptos as we know it? Will there be some leeway for certain kinds of crypto assets? What about an investment threshold? Will they get a chance to exit? And the biggest question of all, have all the investments they've already been made rendered in a sense worthless because of the looming sword of regulation? Now, what is going to happen, and the answer to what is going to happen depends on who you ask. There are various theories swirling around. The fact is, no one really knows till that bill is actually presented in Parliament. But the larger question is, should India be going in for what looks like strict regulation on cryptos? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Monika Halan, author of Let's Talk Money; Gaurav Dahake, founder and CEO of Bitbns, with us on the show; Sathvik Vishwanath, CEO and co-founder of Unocoin, also with us on the show today. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us. Monika, let me begin by getting your take on how you perceive which way the wind is blowing. What has really thrown people off is the description when this bill was listed in the in the list of bills that would be tabled in Parliament, and the description of the crypto bill talks about prohibiting the use of cryptos with certain exceptions. Now, this has set the cat among the pigeons. Would it be fair to assume that this is pointing towards what is possibly a ban or close to a ban?
Amanna, I don't think you can ban something which is digital. You can make pay in and pay out very difficult. Okay. So yes, a country like China can go ahead with the blunt instrument like a ban, but the government will have many ways to make especially the payout more difficult. So we don't know what lies ahead, what the government is going to do. My understanding is that they've been advised not just by the RBI governor, people in the digital space, but also the exchange owners, the digital coin exchange owners. I think there's been a fair amount of consultation. It isn't as if the government is coming out with a diktat. I think there's been a consultative process, and post that, the regulations will be formed. The industry itself has been asking for regulation because today it's unregulated, it's extremely unsafe. So we will just have to see what route the government will take in terms of putting in rules of the game. My sense is they might not use a blunt instrument like a total ban, because the bans are very difficult to implement in the digital space. So a smart government won't do that. They will just make it difficult for the pay in and the payouts to happen, which they have done once earlier by telling the banks you cannot have any dealings with the cryptocurrency exchanges. So that's my sense, that it will be difficult, but not a ban.
What does that mean for the industry, Gaurav? One of the reports that was released today, a wire agency actually put out that report, seemed to suggest that the option is also being mulled of an investment threshold. That means a minimum investment to actually buy and trade in crypto assets. Now, this, if it happens, takes off volume from cryptocurrency agencies or exchanges who have been going out there and telling people that you can come in for as little as 100 rupees a day.
Right. So, like, when you kind of say that, like, the government is considering putting up a threshold, that itself kind of suggests that the talk is more towards regulation rather than a ban. A ban is like you can't trade anything, right? A regulation is you can trade these limits, you can kind of invest up to these things. And there have been different notions around that. Like US has this accredited investor sort of notion where certain people can invest into startups. And crypto, so what we would be sort of seeing, we would not be seeing the 2019 bill that was out there, which actually talked about the ban. What someone has done is when kind of putting across the discussion, what would happen in the parliament, they've just taken the name of the earlier bill and put it out there. but there is absolutely zero likelihood that we're going to see that exact same bill in that same form factor. We're going to see a lot of amendments into that. There has been a lot of ministry level talk that exchanges and all the entities involved have had, and the overall stance has been positive. It is nowhere sort of towards that line. Of course, certain use cases would be restricted. So whether investing as a use case, whether trading as a use case, whether payments as a use case. So payments as a use case might be restricted because payments, India as a payment ecosystem is one of the most forward-looking payment ecosystems in the world with UPI, IMPS, and the entire ecosystem. And we might not need crypto there, but crypto as an investment asset class, that is something that the world is positively.
So Gaurav, sure. Yeah, just a couple of things, about what you mentioned. For one, you said that if they're talking about an investment threshold, then clearly they're not banning it. Frankly, we don't know today. This is one report that talks about an investment threshold. I can point you to several reports which claim that there is going to be close to a ban. Then there are others which say there's going to be regulation. So frankly, we don't know. And the second thing which you said, which I've heard from a lot of crypto players today, which is why I'm coming back to you on it, this assumption, which is maybe a little naive, that someone in the bureaucratic circles has just done a copy paste and stuck this description on, and actually the bill we're going to see is very, very different. Do you think you're being a little naively optimistic, Gaurav?
Not so much. Based on our discussions that have happened with ministry level folks, I would say no. We've because the sort of discussions that are happening are fairly granular and very pointed as to how do these things get addressed, what would happen if this happens, and all those are very, very granular, and they do not point towards any sort of ban per se. If they had to do it, they would have kind of done it without seeking all those sort of feedback. So we don't see that sort of a case to kind of happen.
Yeah.
Even in the earlier bill, there were sort of very, very stringent things mentioned, like a 10-year sort of a jail term for anyone trading into cryptocurrency. Now that is fairly difficult to implement now, considering what scale crypto will reach, right? So of course, those things are not going to be there. It would have a lot of amendments. Sure. And more so towards the regulation side is what we've seen. As I mentioned, we'll of course see things getting restricted, like crypto's use case as a payment thing. Whether participating in, say, ICOs is allowed or not. Like some of those use cases might have restrictions placed, but the other, or whether investment into international trading platforms, global platforms that are, whether that is allowed, because they are regulated in a country like Malta or British Virgin Islands and all, and whether that comes under LRS, whether that should be allowed, all those sort of things would be kind of discussed and given clarity in the next sort of few months.
Okay, so the 2019 bill is a draft bill, and it's just very important to make these things clear to people who are watching, because there is a whole lot of WhatsApp forwards, misinformation, and a lack of understanding on what is happening with cryptocurrency regulation. And this is something we've been following quite diligently on this show and on the channel. So just to make it clear, the 2019 version was a draft bill which never saw the light of day. It was never eventually tabled, taken forward. There'll be a discussion on it, then a vote, then it becomes law. All of that never happened. And clearly that bill was not taken seriously, because look at the boom in the kind of investments since then. So that view was not in place. But what does it really mean? And Sathvik, let me come to you on that. When they talk about prohibiting private cryptocurrencies with a few exceptions, to your mind, what can be defined as a private cryptocurrency today? And if there are exceptions, what would those exceptions be? Would it be, as one might logically think, the more well-known kinds of cryptos like Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., which may be given some allowance? Is that how you're reading it?
Yeah, I mean, when you say private cryptocurrency, right? So we can either see it in one of the two methods. So one is to say that anything that is not given out from the government or Reserve Bank of India can be seen like a private cryptocurrency, which means even Bitcoin, Ether, everything will become private cryptocurrency. But on the other side, if the cryptocurrency is managed or governed by a specific set of say developers and community, then it can be treated like private. So I mean, from my understanding, probably the exception that they're talking about is that, see, we have to understand the blockchain cannot work without cryptocurrency. And one side, there is so much of say push that the blockchain is a good technology and it is supposed to be embraced with a country like India because it's also very tech savvy and digital savvy nature, and it cannot work without some kind of token on top of it. So the entire idea of why blockchain is successful is because it is not controlled by one person. It is controlled by many people and not individually. Nobody is responsible for it, but everyone is collectively responsible for it. So that's what the blockchain as a technology even it's bringing to the table, and that is making it say immutable and it's like forward-looking in nature. So I think they may be more talking about, say, if a company or a set of company or a set of banks want to launch some kind of blockchain, and if there is a token for it, then that may be an exception. So we can see this in like multiple ways. We definitely don't know what this looks like to be, but at least we know that Bitcoin is not at least governed by one particular foundation. At least it's much more global in nature. Yeah.
Okay, let me take that to Monika, because that really is at the crux of it. How would a government define private cryptocurrencies, and how would they decide who gets an exception? Do you think the investment threshold option is a viable one? Because the big concern seems to be to quote unquote protect the youth against something that they don't understand. And the average age of those who invest in cryptos is clearly between the 20 to 35 kind of bracket. So do you think that these two or three things is something that we can see?
That's right, Tamanna. I think what they will probably try and do is stop the sort of scams which are proliferating in this space, where, for instance, the squid coin, that coin came, people put money in and they decamped with the money. And now they're going up to 16 decimal places to make it fractionally easier to put money in. So you're luring people into something which is very high risk. These are people with either no understanding that it is a digital token and nothing else. It has no underlying value in itself. And there is a value because there is a demand. And should the demand go away, like in the case of squid coin, then the value goes to zero right away, right? So I don't think in this whole rush towards trying to get rich overnight, caution has been thrown to the wind. So then the government will step in to protect the small investor, the new investor. A lot of the young people are thinking this is a quick way to turn rich overnight. So they would try and put in protocols to prevent such people coming to market, and that, the threshold of investment might then deal with things like, 16 decimal coins and points, and then you can put in 50 rupees and start trading in crypto. So as I began saying, they will make it difficult. It will not be banned, but they will make it difficult, whether it is a threshold, whether it's a pay in, pay out, whether it's a exam that investors have to take. I mean, if I was going to put on my policy hat, I would say clear a basic exam on understanding risks and return before you are allowed to trade in crypto. Why wouldn't you do that? You say you're really smart and you understand these things. There's a whole digital underlying and all that. Well, pass a basic exam and then and have a certain amount of money, and then you go ahead and trade in this so-called.
But Monika, people would argue, just a counter argument there would be that that's quite an elitist way to look at it. Do we have an exam for people to invest in bonds, in ULIPs, which was the most criticized sort of investment option, and many thought that they got duped into it, into equity for that matter? Should poorer people never have an option of a new investment opportunity?
So is it an investment opportunity? At the moment, it's more like a gamble. People are gambling without even understanding what this thing is. So because it is so, what should we say? Because it is so difficult for an average person to understand. And because there's no underlying, I would put in thresholds before people can actually invest. So you have, for instance, a stock, Tamanna, has an underlying firm which makes goods and services, it makes profits and losses. A bond has a borrower and a lender. Gold, for historical reasons and for central bank assets, all central banks hold gold reserves. So there is a certain store of value in this metal called gold. I mean, these are digital tokens. We don't know where this goes. And I don't think governments will give away control over monetary policy and fiat currency by adopting a privately held crypto currency. The other way to look at it also is that in this whole rush for decentralization and not wanting to be part of anything with the government, you are handing over control to some private party or a tech giant firm. So, in this whole thing of trying to diss the government, we should just think this through.
Sathvik, you want to respond to that? Some very key concerns that Monika has talked about, which, to be honest, a lot of people share, and especially those in the Reserve Bank of India who will have a big say in what that final bill looks like.
Yeah, so there is multiple points here, right? So one is if we say, I mean, we call it as gamble. I mean, some people call it as gamble, okay. But then again, if you see the graphs of how the returns has been, it doesn't look like gamble at all. It much more looks like a future-looking technology. At one point of time, say it could be .com boom, or it could be between say 2005 and 2010 when the information technology giants have been born, etc. It has given tremendous returns. So now we need to understand that. See, what is at the end cryptocurrency? I think that most of the people does not get it. They just try to see that, okay, the price of it is today so much and what it will be in 2 years and how much money, and a lot of people don't even talk in percentages, how much gain they get. They talk in terms of multipliers. Okay, they can at least become like 5 times more money. Okay, so this is totally looked in the wrong manner. I think that this is actually taking away the real authenticity of like why it is even there. All that the cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin is doing generally is doing the transactions in a free and fast manner, like how the messaging is possible today, like free and fast, right? So when this new technology comes into the world, it has to come with some particular value so that the actual transaction will become valuable. And that's exactly is what has pushed the prices from what it used to be maybe a few years ago to what it is right now. And there is so much of work and efforts being put behind it to make this so much valuable. And it is not like there is no underlying asset. There is no underlying physical asset, I would say. Then at least when you say services, right? So if you are putting it behind it, so how many people, we call it as Bitcoin mining?
No, so what is the this is Sathvik, this is a big contention of debate. So let me come in and ask you very clearly, and then I'll get Monika and Gaurav to respond. What is the underlying asset? What is the underlying asset? What is the value or the service, or what do you get for that one coin?
Okay, see, the underlying asset is a huge network that is spread across the world, which are ready to accept the transactions happening and process it. And because this particular transaction that happens is kind of set in stone, because it uses something called blockchain technology, which is immutable in nature, and it kind of exists forever without any intervention of third party, it is valuable, and that's its underlying asset. And these people are using, say, electricity, large amount of electricity, in fact, to make these kinds of transactions process, and that is how they are earning the freshly created Bitcoins, and then eventually those as well come into circulation, right? So here again, we cannot say the computer I have is an asset behind it. Yeah, it is a part of the asset behind it if I connect it to the network and make that particular work happen. And today we're talking about hundreds of thousands of computers which is doing this work. And that is why it is becoming valuable. Else at the end, if it is like completely centrally controlled, I don't think this, whatever we're talking about, would have been of this kind of value. It works without anyone in between, but kind of everyone in between. Yeah, people have to get their head around this, like how it works. It is like email, right? So there is no server, individual server.
Monika, I want you to respond to that. Yeah. I want you to respond. I want you to respond to this description that Sathvik has given, because that really is the crux of it, right? What is this?
Absolutely right. It is a network. It is people who are part of that network. Because of that network, it creates value. And we will take this discussion one notch forward. What is it that the governments, the stable, viable governments across the world are worried about? They are actually worried about the tech giants having their own currencies, which will have millions and millions of users, which becomes an alternate way to transact globally. The power of the government comes from running their fiat currency. There is no way. So the government has the power to break the monopolies, to break the tech giants. So I would look at it as a battle between governments, if individual sovereigns. The sovereigns will get together, Tamanna, mark my words. Whether it's a G20, whether it's a handshake between the top 5, and India is one of them now, you cannot have governments handing over control to an Elon Musk, Jack, whoever. Okay, you cannot have that. And however much we as individuals today might find this very romantic that there's no government means anarchy. You're handing it over to somebody who tweets today Bitcoin good, tomorrow Bitcoin bad. So, I think we just need to be a little mature about what kind of world we think of when there's no government. It's very easy to discuss government or any government, but there are certain certainties that those governments provide. So yes, it's a network. The value is to that network, and the governments will fight to not give that power to the tech giants. That's where this goes.
All right, so that's the basic fight. Gaurav, you want to quickly come in on, what the fight is really about. And I think what we're going to see in the Indian Parliament in a few days from now is just one part of it.
Right. So Bitcoin, Ethereum are sort of public blockchains, right? So they're not controlled by any tech giant. Facebook creating a Libra or a Dime coin is that part which Monika is trying to address. But Bitcoin is kind of open to anyone across the world to kind of use it. Same with Ethereum. So these sort of things would not typically fall under the purview of private cryptocurrencies, is what we anticipate. The way RBI defines it, it would fall. The way the bill might define it might slightly differ from there, because that's why they mentioned some exceptions, and that's where Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a few others sort of fall. So we anticipate that it would kind of limit that private cryptocurrency definition to single entity sort of created tokens or coins.
I think I have little things to add here, right? So at this point of time,
we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, the few things I could add here is that at this point of time, we still don't know if there was a new committee formed which has created new bill, right? And then now we are thinking that, okay, the committee or the body which is being formed will be able to go in depth to know, okay, Bitcoin doesn't have any kind of company behind it, and Ether doesn't have it. And this kind of distinctions is like a very advanced discussion, right? So I don't think that is happening right now. And if we are seeing that, okay, the 2 lines of description that we have, and if they are trying to correlate it to what exactly will be on the table in next 1 or 2 weeks, that distinguishing, I definitely cannot even imagine. It's very far away.
So we don't know. You're right in saying that, Sathvik. We don't know right now what's going to be on that table in the next 1 or 2 weeks. What we can be sure is that business as usual will not continue for cryptocurrencies in India. That we can be very, very sure of. Now, will the squeeze be as tight as, a virtual ban? Will it be just making it hard to pay in or pay out? And will it ensure that there are only some kind of investors who come in? All of that remains to be seen. But yes, the heydays, I would say, of crypto investments may just see a pause, at least for now. Well, on that note, I would like to thank all of you for joining us on this very important discussion. We'll obviously be keeping an eye on that story.